I'd like to call this regular council meeting to order. Councillor Flagg, would you please read the land acknowledgement?
Yes, Your Worship. We acknowledge that the land upon which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Adirondack, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe people. We are beneficiaries of the ancient agreements such as the dish with one spoon between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, who agreed to share the abundance of the land through peace, friendship, and mutual respect. The two-row wampum by which the Haudenosaunee welcomed the settlers and agreed to share the land in mutual respect, and the Treaty of Niagara, considered a fundamental document by First Nations in all future relations and treaties with the British. We recognize that we have a responsibility to be stewards of the land in cooperation and collaboration with the Indigenous people, not only for one generation, but for all generations to come. We understand that we have an obligation to learn the lessons of our history, educate ourselves about the experience of the Indigenous people, and seek opportunities to heal the wounds that result in reconciliation with our Indigenous sisters and brothers. Many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people live and work in Fort Erie. We stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands upon which we live. We have the good fortune to live in such a land of abundance, diversity, and beauty. Let us be vigilant in protecting Turtle Island.
Thank you. Would you all please rise for the invocation?
We meet to serve our community and endeavor to be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Let us be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chambers minds that think, hearts that feel, so that in our deliberations we may display imagination, wisdom, and courage, and the will to do our work for the good of all.
Thank you. And Acting Clerk, could you do the roll call, please?
All members of council are present for this evening's meeting.
Thank you. There's a number of items on an addendum. The first is that the first delegation will not be appearing this evening. That will be scheduled for a later event. We've added an additional confidential human resources matter to our agenda, which we dealt with in closed session. Councillor Noyes' resolution, which appears in the agenda, has been slightly modified, and there have been a couple of provisions added to bylaws 65 and 66 relative to the 5-year time frame for the actions to be undertaken as permitted in the bylaw. With respect to announcements, just wanted to make some brief announcements. The council appeared, a number of members of council went to Ottawa with respect to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference. We had a number of meetings scheduled. The first day there were 6 delegations. We dealt with a number of ministers and parliamentary assistants and advanced the interests of Fort Erie. This has been subject to municipal media release, been part of the information in the newspaper. Second day we had 3 delegations, again with ministers, parliamentary assistants, and again advanced the interests of the town of Fort Erie. Probably the most active and likely the most productive conference, Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference that we've attended, and got good responses from all of the individuals with whom we met, many of whom we've met with in the past, many of whom are familiar with what's going on in Fort Erie, and so that proved to be a worthwhile venture. Second thing I wanted to mention is that before our next meeting, school will be starting September the 8th, the day after Labor Day, and I hope everyone has a safe Labor Day, but I hope everyone appreciates that on September the 8th, the children in our town will be back at school, and so it's very important that we be cautious as we're driving around the town, particularly when we're in school zones. This has been, the town has undertaken a lot of action with respect to traffic calming over the last couple of years, and that's primarily because some people feel that they need to drive in excess of the speed limit, which I think is human nature. But when you're in a school zone, it's particularly important to modify your speed and be very vigilant with respect to the children. And then finally, I want to make reference to the fact that on Friday, nominations for candidates for the municipal election on October the 26th closed. We have a healthy number of candidates across the board in Fort Erie for both council and the school board, with the exception of council wards 1 and 6. And I want to congratulate both Councillor McDermott and Councillor Noyes for being acclaimed for another 4 years. And I know that you'll continue to serve the community well during that period of time. And I'm sure that you'll be watching the rest of us as we spend our time wandering around the streets of Fort Erie for the next couple of months. Okay. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. 59/2026, my wife and I own that property. And 65/2026 and 66/2026, I was a past partner with the applicant on those.
Okay, are there any others? There are no notices of upcoming public meetings. That takes us to the Regional Council report. Councillor Encina.
Good evening, Mayor Redekop, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me. A presentation was received at Corporate Services Committee regarding the Niagara Tourism Data Dashboard. It was presented by the Niagara Parks, Tourism Partnership of Niagara, and Niagara Economic Development. Currently, all the data that is collected by the different agencies is fragmented, and there is no easy access to the data, let alone account for the gaps in the data collection. In 2025, tourism in the region accounted for approximately $1.4 billion in GDP, roughly 7% of regional GDP. In our region, over 36,000 jobs, along with 4,300 businesses, depend on tourism, with over $3.8 billion being spent in visitor expenditures. The creation of the tourism dashboard will create a standardized and coordinated quarterly reporting tool to access and utilize tourism intelligence. As council is aware, the Ontario government has put forward Destination Niagara with the mandate of increasing visitation and length of stay in the region. It is this dashboard and the collection of the information that will be used to provide a more consistent approach understanding the region's visitor economy. A data sharing agreement is forthcoming between Niagara Parks, Niagara Economic Development, and Tourism Partnership of Niagara. It was good to see the Fort Erie contingent at the AMO conference in Ottawa. There was much success at the region level, with many of the asks being well received and agreed to with regards to supportive housing, burial site investigations, First Nation engagement, and the South Niagara Wastewater Treatment Plant, Phase 1. Municipal funding agreements were also discussed. For Councillor Noyes, Stevensville Road construction continues in the design phase. However, Transportation Department is looking at remediation of the road between Bowen Road and south to the railway tracks. They're hoping they can get something done. Road resurfacing continues on Garrison Road with the anticipated conclusion in October. Also slated for resurfacing is Bowen Road between Ridgemount and the QEW. Niagara Regional Housing is now looking for a new location for the trailers that are currently being stored here in Fort Erie. The site that they were to go to was already being prepped, and the land lease was set to be signed by the province and the region. As you may have heard, the province has now backed out of the agreement. Niagara Regional Housing, along with social services, is now going back to the drawing board to see what other properties can be used. A year was expended along with funds to find that site that was suitable. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you very much, Councillor Encina. Are there any questions? Councillor Noyes. Does it have to do with Stevensville Road?
That was question number 2, but I'll make it question number 1. Thank you for the update on Stevensville Road, but one of my questions was a left-hand turn signal on Stevensville Road, and that would be part of the design, whatever. I think we really do need a left-hand turn lane at that, at the lights at Main Street, well, West and East Main Street and Stevensville Road, because that's where the bottleneck happens. And I think if we plan it now, we should be able to get it in the stage. The other question I had, the other part about Stevens Road, are they doing any remedial work right now? Is that what you said? Or they're just going to wait till the whole thing has to be done?
No, I have asked, and I spoke to the director. They're trying to see what they can do in the meantime from the tracks to Bowen Road, from the south tracks to Bowen Road, to see whether they can just scrape it and put it back. They're trying to accommodate me really being a pain in the butt with them.
Well, I won't comment on that one. I think I'm the one pushing you to it. So anyway, in regards to another issue, the recycling bins, I've heard from different people we don't have to separate them anymore, and some of the new boxes don't kind of look like we do. Do we still have to separate paper and plastic?
My understanding right now is that still has to be separated.
Okay, thank you. And does the Niagara Region plant any trees on Fort Erie Boulevards?
Not that I know of. I can find out.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Regional Councillor Encina. Today I had the opportunity with a number of councillors to sit on the round table for homelessness, and I don't expect an answer tonight, but I did want to bring it up. When we were having discussions about homelessness and how to address it in Fort Erie, one of the things that stuck out to me was the lack of data or gathered data in order to build the business case to be able to try and deal with the issue. And I was told that there was a regionally funded system called IPHIS, I-P-H-I-S, which is a database that is used to track programs, homelessness, but I learned that Fort Erie is not part of that there is no regional representative or staff member, and at one point in the distant past, we did have a shared resource, I believe, with Port Colborne, but I'm just wondering, maybe for a future council meeting, or if you could get back to council on a little bit more about that program, how it works, and why Fort Erie would not be participating in that, because at the tables, at least the table that I was at today, one of the things that came back, and when we heard the presentations from the other members, was we don't have the data to be able to quantify how many people in our community are homeless or unhoused. So when I heard of that program leaving the meeting tonight, I wanted to bring that up tonight, because I think if we're not part of it, we should probably be looking at why we aren't. And if you can do something to assist with that or provide more info, that would be much appreciated.
Mayor Redekop, to the councillor, are you talking about the work that NASA is doing?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure who or where it necessarily belongs to. I was told the acronym was IPHIS. It's a regionally funded system, homeless data at the individual level. It
Yes.
tracks programs and
Yes.
outcomes and personal information. But my understanding is Fort Erie is not part of that, and we do not have the quantity of homeless. We do not have a number to quantify how many people in our community are either homeless or unhoused.
There was data through NASA.
For
NASA?
NASO?
Yes. NASA is the agency that is funded through the Niagara Region. At the Niagara Region right now, there are, it's a list by name of all those who are unhoused, currently unhoused. And I'm aware that those that are here that have strong Fort Erie neighborhood have dealt with are on the list. But I will look into that for you, and I'm almost 100% that NASA, actually, it was through a bit of persistence that NASA actually comes here now. They've actually got a new person that will come here, that is coming here every Wednesday now. Strong Fort Erie neighborhood.
Okay, and I will send you the information on IFIS
I will find
or
that
whatever
for you,
it's
yes.
pronounced with. But
Yep.
if we're not part of it, I'd like to better understand from the regional perspective why we're not, and how we can capture that data in order to make informed decisions to address such an important issue. And I know our mayor, who also on regional council, would be listening too.
Yeah. Councillor Encina will follow up on that. Anyone else? Thank you very much, then, Councillor Encina. That takes us to presentations and delegations, and the first delegation is Jordan Sherlock, Executive Director of the Niagara Industrial Association. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Do I have, there we go, do I get a click or anything? Keyboard below. Keyboard below? Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, members of council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Chair, for having me here tonight to speak a little bit about the current state of manufacturing in the region. My name is Jordan Sherlock. I'm the Executive Director of the Niagara Industrial Association. For those of you who are not familiar with our organization, our mission is to be the voice and hand of industry in Niagara, attending to the collective challenges and goals of our members. We are membership-led, fairly straightforward mission. We say both voice and hand because in terms of support, we feel like the local manufacturing community here needs both. A voice to be heard and recognized, but also a helping hand to guide what is largely made up of true SMEs, small family type businesses, in getting access to resources and information so that they can grow. Our ultimate vision is to preserve and promote and develop industry in Niagara, ensuring its future vitality. We'll get into more about that in a little bit. And really our value proposition as a membership-based industry association comes from a very grassroots starting point. We're coming close to 20 years of existence. And funny enough, we were created by a group of local industrialists very much in a similar environment that we're seeing today. They actually kind of met up accidentally in an oil sands conference out west. We're trying to find creative ways to continue to work together and collaborate and take on some of the opportunities that we were seeing in Alberta at the time, in the wake of a lot of large-scale manufacturing leaving the Niagara region. More on that in a minute here. But really our mandate is focused around three strategic pillars, quite, I think, self-explanatory. Network, resource, advocate. That's what we strive to be for our members. Network, I think, is probably the most important, or the one that I put the most value on. We have the advantage of working in a relatively small community. The sector is fairly large given our population, but it allows us to collaborate and work together very closely. More on that in a minute, but the NIA is very much a conduit to allow those collaborations to happen. Resource, I spoke earlier about the nature, typical small nature of most of our manufacturing companies here. They don't necessarily have the internal resources or capacities to do the work that's necessary to grow and sustain. So we act as a bit of an extension to bring those resources forward to them, build good trust relationships that we can access when need be. Right now, a big one is government funding, for example. More on that later. And then finally, advocacy. So representing the sector is critical. Tonight, for example, is just a friendly information session. I'm not going to ask anybody for money, I don't think, tonight. But you know, it's very important that the sector has representation so that their voice is heard, and there's awareness as to the economic impact that the manufacturing sector brings here, because it is significant. This map is a little bit out of date, but I did confirm today that the numbers for Fort Erie are fairly similar to what we have here in this graphic. So we're close to 300 members strong now. Fort Erie represents, well, let's call it 25, okay? I'm going to give a few more points there. But we're seeing, you know, a lot of growth, I think, happening and expected to continue to happen in what I think we would call South Niagara, Port Colborne, Welland, Fort Erie, Niagara Falls. In addition to what's happened largely for several decades in St. Catharines as kind of the biggest representation. Again, fairly spread out, and we're seeing quite a bit of growth happening in South Niagara. Some of you may have seen some of this information. It does come directly from the region. This is actually my favorite slide. I'm a bit of a numbers geek, but I think the statistics and the numbers tell a strong story for what the sector brings to the overall economic situation. Nominal GDP, we're in, I think, third place in terms of total regional GDP and how we're represented, around 10%. That's actually pretty close to the national average. The national average might be a little bit lower than that, maybe 8 or 9%. We've seen a bit of a decline, kind of, we'll call it coming out of COVID in terms of GDP growth. More on that in a moment. A lot of investment in industrial building construction. A lot of that has happened right here in Fort Erie over the last few years, close to $1 billion. But the sector is represented by, this number is actually a little bit higher today, over 20,000 people. Many are residents of Niagara. And believe it or not, over 600 businesses. Now, some of those are what I would call maybe non-traditional manufacturing, so wineries would be in there, for example. Small businesses, like 1 to 2 employees, but traditional manufacturing, we probably have between 300 and 350 total here in the region. They're not necessarily, you know, the big, sexy ones that we think of in some other regions, but there are a lot of them, and they do a lot of unique and really good things. And to that point, about 85% of those businesses are in that 1 to 50 employee size. So I call them, you know, multi-generational, oftentimes kind of mom and pop type shops. These are really small businesses, and this is largely why the NIA exists. A lot of exporting, as I'm sure you've seen in the news, notwithstanding what's happened over the weekend. But export values actually continue to grow. Exports to the U.S. actually continue to grow in the last 18 months or so, which may be surprising. But we do export a lot of goods, and most of those exports do go to the United States. Importing, same thing, we import from all over the world, but we also do import from the U.S. quite a bit. And our total manufacturing footprint is over 25 million square feet. So some significant numbers, and again, as a collective, as a cluster, as a sector, it's a strong representation, although sometimes represented by a bunch of smaller companies. And you can see here kind of how that sector makeup looks across what we have for manufacturing here. And this is actually, in my opinion, of benefit to us. Again, considering what's going on today, where we have a very broad makeup of subsectors within manufacturing. So we are not an auto sector, for example. And I think that gives us some advantage because when disruptions do happen, we're not necessarily decimated because there's one, you know, huge impact that is going to decimate an entire subsector. We have breadth across a whole bunch of different areas, and I won't read them all, but I think you're probably all familiar with some of the names in there. Again, many based right here in Fort Erie. For us, that is great, but it also poses a challenge as an industry association because the breadth of that representation forces us or challenges us to have programming that kind of suits everybody. So if we were just an auto sector representative, it would be a lot easier to focus. But we're always asking questions like, who are we? What do our members need? How do we stay aware of geopolitical activities and bring that information forward and bring solutions forward? Things like succession planning, et cetera, all kind of lead into some of the trends and challenges that I wanted to make you folks aware of tonight. Some may be quite obvious, others maybe you're not familiar with, but you know, the biggest one that I still hear today from my members, in spite of what's going on geopolitically, is labor pool, workforce, both current and concern for the future, specifically in trades and manufacturing type positions. Awareness and interest with youth and parents, I can say is, I think, improving compared to what we've seen in the last, say, 3 to 5 years. I think youth are more interested, and I think parents are more willing to encourage their children to get into the trades. But it's still an uphill battle, and I think given the need, the demand exceeds the supply currently, so that's a huge challenge. With that comes a lack of succession planning or business transition focus. We have a lot of ownership in manufacturing that is coming close to retirement or aging out. We have to make sure those folks are preparing to pass that business on to either another generation or to sell locally, as opposed to sell out, as we say. Business attraction is interesting. I've got here Niagara is the final frontier. I guess it's a Star Trek reference, but you know, if you think of Southern Ontario or Southwestern Ontario, there's not a lot of places left for businesses to expand. So Niagara's kind of had the spotlight on it for the last couple of years, where it might not have in years prior. And I've spoken to some large construction contractors, for example, who, when they've made their way down here, they suddenly say, oh my gosh, we didn't know this place existed. So I think there will continue to be a natural spotlight shone on Niagara as attraction continues. Residential encroachment, to be honest, I'm not sure if that's a big issue here in Fort Erie, but we have seen other municipalities where zoning has become an issue and existing industrial lands are threatened by residential encroachment. Again, we're kind of playing that battle between needing more homes, but also needing to encourage growth and development in the industrial sector. Competition for business attraction and expansion continues to be a big one. We just delegated at the region recently. And again, more than ever, I think we need to find competitive advantages here in the region for attracting new business, but also encouraging the folks who are here to stay here. There will be competition, especially in the US, and opportunities for our manufacturers to expand there. We need to have competitive advantages. We've seen a lot of government investment, both at the federal and provincial level, into, I'll call it the trades or manufacturing, specifically or mostly maybe around workforce development. Very positive sign, and I think the region just announced a couple weeks ago, several, I believe 13 companies, manufacturers were recipients of some significant dollars. Internal training program, that kind of goes earlier to the labor pools. We're seeing companies doing more and more training internally just to simply upskill the people they have. Geo and local political uncertainty, I'll save that to Q&A if anyone has any questions. I think we all read the news. And just at a very fundamental level, operational challenges continue to come up for manufacturers with supply chain disruptions, tariff threats, wage rate increases, global competition, et cetera, et cetera.
Mr. Sherlock, you're over your 10 minutes, you're over 11 minutes. How much longer do you anticipate?
90 seconds?
Okay. Councillor Christensen, Councillor Lewis, agreeable to an extra 90 seconds?
Thank you, Mr.
All in
Chair.
favor? Go.
Thank you. So we talk about partnership, I think, with our local municipalities and economic development offices. These are some of the things that we really look to in terms of partnership and working together. I'll let you read through those, but at the core of it, I think it's strategic alignment, and we really strive hard to align strategically with all of our economic development partners. Fort Erie has been fantastic over the years in terms of a partner hosting regular meetings for us. We currently have 4 directors on our board who are from Fort Erie representing businesses. You folks have about 43 manufacturing companies, which make up about 1,400 jobs. So very strong sector representation here. A thank you just to all of you for what you do in terms of recognizing our sector as vital and continuing to invest economically and recognize the significance of manufacturing here. I'm just going to breeze through some pictures of some of our member tours and some of the growth that we're seeing happen across the region. None of Fort Erie, I apologize. And I will wrap there. I apologize for taking up more of your time. Thank you very much.
That's quite all right. Thank you very much. Yeah, you should have had some photos of Fort Erie. You've got Bateman Technologies. You've got, I think Airbus is a member.
They won't let me take pictures. That's the problem.
Really?
I did have CCTT on there. I blasted through it, but the CCTT is a great partner as well.
Correct. Thank you very much. Any members have questions? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Through you to Mr. Sherlock. Mr. Sherlock, one of the things, you're talking about land scarcity. And going back several years, I know the town tried to designate more industrial land, and the obstacle we came up against was provincially significant wetlands that would not allow the zoning for industrial. Have you looked at that at all, or?
Through you, Chair, no, I have not. Yeah, I can't speak specifically. So these were restrictions that the province was putting on wetland development?
Yes. Well, basically, you know, the Queenie corridor, we were hoping that we could do some zoning there for industrial.
Sure.
And we were told no, because it's considered significant wetland, so we couldn't do it.
Yeah, again, through you, Chair, I'm not familiar specifically with those details, but if that's something that's still a concern, again, I think we would be, happy and willing to partner, if that makes sense, to try to get the province's attention or talk about ways to perhaps remediate that. For Niagara, I think it's important for municipalities to explore the option to invest in land where possible. I think it gives us a lot of control as to who's developing. it prevents things like property banking from happening and locking up some of these investments. We have that happening right now currently in a few situations, or if those lands are being released, the current owner is asking for above market price and market rate. So we're all for municipalities investing in land where possible and would be happy to collaborate or support if there's an opportunity.
Anyone else? Mr. Sherlock, I had an opportunity to check in with a couple of your members of larger businesses in Fort Erie, just to ask them a little bit about their observations regarding the most recent escalation of tariffs by our neighbor to the south. They're both fairly optimistic in terms of where this goes, but certainly a little uncertain about how long their businesses and other businesses can maintain successful operations in view of the uncertainty that's going on. Is that pretty typical of most of your members as far as you can gauge at this stage? I know it's still early since Friday.
Yeah, it is early. We've seen, I'd call this kind of the third wave. We had the initial wave and then the Section 232 tariffs, which came into effect in June, which in my opinion are actually more detrimental, generally speaking, to manufacturing. This most recent round is a little more specific with the goods that are listed. I'm happy to report that I'm not hearing too many horror stories, or I have not heard too many since, say, 18-ish months ago or so. In fact, we have some folks who are doing very, very well and have backlog. I was at Canada Perforating last week here in Fort Erie, and they are up to their eyeballs. They need to hire more, they need more equipment, they just received some funding. So that's great. They're looking east-west in Canada. So I think that's been a positive. I used to be in manufacturing. 75% of my business was done in the States. I didn't really care about Canada too much just because that was such a lucrative market. If something like this happened to me and I was still in manufacturing, I think the first step I would look to, outside of all the global free trade agreements that we talk about, I'd be looking east-west, and I think a lot of folks are doing that. The defense sector investment is incredibly, I think it's a big positive for us here in Niagara. It's going to take time to unfold, but the investment, I think, is going to be applicable to a lot of our companies here, which will have residual economic impact downstream, which is always fantastic. So that's a long way of answering your question. Yes, most folks, I think, are optimistic and resilient. However, the longer the uncertainty goes on, the more that folks kind of pause their growth plans. When they pause their growth plans, that gives them a chance to kind of look at other options. And one of those options is about 10 minutes that way, and they're making a very good case to attract Canadian investment. So that's something we have to watch out for, and again, why we need to find competitive advantages here.
Right. Thank you very much, and thank you for the work that you're doing across Niagara, but particularly in Fort Erie.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is Mr. Greg Hunter. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Redekop, councillors, staff, members of the public. My name is Greg Hunter. I live at 3735 Sussex Lane. I'm here tonight to talk about a preventable public safety hazard on Black Creek Road at culvert S112C. What am I asking council to consider? Is there a foreseeable fall-through hazard? If so, can that hazard be reduced through a practical and reasonably inexpensive change to the existing railing? I'm asking council to direct staff to address the safety concern. My presentation has 4 sections. First, I'll talk about the location and the existing condition. I'll talk about the safety concern, some practical solutions, and my request to council. This is where the location is. It's right adjacent to 3797 Black Creek Road, near where Black Creek empties into the Niagara River. Here I show some photographs of what the old culvert used to look like. How did this situation arise? You can see there the old culvert. We had a concrete culvert on one side and we had a metal culvert on the other side. The road was collapsing, and fortunately we've ended up with a nice new culvert. The issue that I have is with the railing. The new design, the replacement project included a new culvert, new retaining walls, and new railings. The concern, like I said, is with the railings on each end. This is the design of the new culvert project, and I've highlighted two notes. New cast-in-place concrete retaining wall with footing and pedestrian railing, and more importantly, the pedestrian barricade as per OPSD 980.101. This is an image showing the railing. What does the railing look like from road level? And I have to admit, when I first saw this railing installed, I didn't see the issue. I thought it was an unattractive railing, but I didn't see the safety issue. And one of my neighbors, who is a mother, she's a retired teacher, she saw it, she got a hold of me, and she's concerned that children may be able to fall through that railing to the creek and the rocks below. And I'll just tell you a coincidence that happened yesterday. Around noon, I was driving home. Right through this section, there was a young family, a young father, a young mother, and a little boy looked like he was about 3 years old. They were throwing pieces of bread through that railing to the fish and the ducks in the water below. And as I drove by, I thought to myself, you know, if his parents get distracted, it'll take 2 seconds for that kid to be through that railing and into the water. Fortunately, it didn't happen. But who's to say it's not going to happen? On the other side, the hazard is also apparent. The railing includes relatively large openings between the horizontal members and the ground below. The question is, what might happen if a small child enters this area? And this is actually the reason why I'm here tonight. What happens beyond the railing? Approximately an 8-foot fall to the rocks and water below. When I saw this, I thought, you know, I have to do what I can. The safety concern. This is not a question of whether a fall is likely to happen every day. The question is whether a foreseeable fall-through hazard should remain when it can reasonably be reduced. This is a drawing of the OPSD 980.101 railing, and I just want to focus in on the two areas that I've outlined in red there. There's a lot of information there, but the two most important for my presentation are those two in red. And this is what it says. Note G, a difference in elevation between the adjacent ground level and top of the footing shall not exceed 600 millimeters. And 600 millimeters is about 2 feet. So in my mind, that's a very clear safety warning that this railing shall not be installed anywhere where there's more than a 2-foot vertical drop. And what we have on Black Creek Road is an 8-foot vertical drop. Questions for council. Regardless of why the current railing was designed this way, is there a foreseeable risk that a child or other person could pass through the railing, fall, and be seriously injured? If that risk can be reduced by making practical modifications, should the town take reasonable steps to do so? What did the design engineering company say? Actually, I've been working with town staff since the beginning of April, and town staff got a response from the design engineering company, and they said, as there are no existing sidewalks or trails in minimal pedestrian use, this site includes only pedestrian barricades over the structure. The OPSD 980.101 is referenced for installation and materials only. While some risk exists, we believe this risk is limited due to low pedestrian use. And what the person who wrote this response might not understand is that there are currently 2 large subdivisions being built in Douglastown that will approximately double the population in Douglastown. And as I said yesterday, I saw an instance which could have ended in tragedy. What did a railing manufacturer say? What I did was I took those photographs and I emailed them to a company that manufactures railings, and I just wanted to get an idea on what it would cost to replace those railings with something that was safer. And this is his response. Looking at the picture, the railing does not meet code. This should be a picket rail. How high is the new railing on site? This opinion is one reason why I believe the current railing needs further review. Whether the Ontario Building Code applies in this case or not, the physical safety concern remains. What would a more restrictive barrier look like? On the left, you see the photograph of the current railing, and that's right where that young boy was standing yesterday. Or on the left, I mean, and on the right, you see a picket rail. They're reduced size of the vertical opening, so a child can't pass through it, and it's more difficult for a child to climb. What has town staff said? The railing and structure do not fall under the building code. The railing was engineered and designed for this application and is used widely as a standard for this purpose. A railing was installed where a railing did not exist before. Staff will look at alternatives and potential ways to communicate that the railing on the bridge is not for climbing. And again, my concern remains the potential for a person to pass through the railing, not simply to climb it. Where we agree and where the concern remains. I agree, railings have been installed where none existed before. The structure was engineered for its intended purpose, but the concern remains the existing configuration could allow a child or other person to pass through the railing and fall approximately 8 feet to the rocks and water below. If a hazard can be substantially reduced through practical modification, I believe it should be addressed. Option 1. This is a picket rail. This is what it could look like. Small vertical spaces, difficult for children to climb. This is the price that I got from the railing manufacturer. He told me it's $350 to $650 per meter. We need 24 meters, so the material would be somewhere between $9,000 and $16,000 plus tax. I couldn't estimate the labor, but it comes down to removing and replacing 60 1-inch diameter nuts with an air gun, installing a new railing. Second option would be to infill the existing railing with chain link fence. And this could be a temporary solution, it could be a permanent solution. It retains the existing railing, it reduces the opening size and fall hazard, it's a lower cost approach, it's a relatively straightforward installation. I actually found an example of this approach. This is from the City of Toronto's Infrastructure Services Department, and this drawing is a provincial standard drawing, but in Toronto they recognized that there was a shortcoming in the provincial standard drawing in that it didn't address the fall hazard. So Toronto created their own drawing, which is exactly the same as the provincial drawing, but they added this one critical note. Note number 6. Install chain link fence, see OPSD 972.131 on top of head wall for walls that have greater than 600 millimeter vertical drop. And I don't understand why the town of Fort Erie couldn't do this, the same approach. I just got a quote from Right Way Fencing in Niagara Falls this weekend to cover that existing railing with a 36-inch tall black mesh, $5,600. 3 weeks lead time, it'll be 1 day to do the job. Another solution, which is a little bit more creative, would be to install metal panels. These are laser cut metal panels. There's 11 panels that we would need. How long does it take to install 11 panels on an existing railing? Probably a day. We could pick whatever design we wanted. I picked this design because it's actually called Fort. I got a quote from a company in Concord, Ontario called Laser Cut Arts, $5,480 plus tax, plus labor. My request to council, I'm asking council to pass a motion directing town staff to address the potential fall-through hazard at culvert S112C on Black Creek Road. I'm not asking council to select the engineering solution tonight. The objective is simple: prevent a person from passing through the railing and falling to the area below. Here's my proposed motion. Do you want me to read this?
No, I don't think that's necessary. We've got that. We have your presentation on our iPads.
Yes, you do. And let me just say also, Mr. Peasel has the quote from Right Way. I forwarded it to him. It's 4 pages long. And I've heard that, this may be deferred to the budget process because that picket rail will be expensive. But this is an issue of safety. And $6,000 and a day's worth of labor is a cheap price to pay. to feel comfortable that we've done something to make people safe. And I would hate to wait another 8 months for the budget process to work itself through, and, you know, I would feel uncomfortable. Thank you for your time and attention. Does anybody have any questions?
I get to ask that question, Mr. Hunter. Thank you very much for coming out, and I know that you've been working with town staff, and I know that there's some variations of opinions with respect to certain aspects, but the safety aspect is something we're all concerned about. Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. One of the reasons when you said what the provider did and said, was that the low pedestrian traffic. Is there low pedestrian traffic? I don't know what their measurement is, but I know that the only restaurant is at the end of this road. The access to the Niagara Boulevard, primarily people walk through there, and there's a lot of kids in the area.
Well, just to speak to that, when we were trying to get the speed bumps installed, I did my own informal traffic study. I believe it was in 2001, and on a Saturday morning early, it was about 5 people an hour. So since then, we've had probably 75 new homes built, so it's more than 5 people an hour now. Plus, we have cyclists, you know, that's on a cycling route. There's quite a few cyclists. They stop and look at the creek and so on. We have probably 200 more houses coming, right, with Spring Creek Estates and Black Creek Signature Phase 2. So the person that wrote that comment has probably never done a traffic study. So I can say from experience, you know, 5 years ago, it was 5 people an hour. But now it's probably 10 people an hour.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other members of council? Mr. Hunter, we can deal with this when we get to new business, and we'll be looking for staff to provide us with some information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us to, there are no public meetings this evening, so that takes us to the consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone wishes removed from the consent agenda? Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Report number P 12.1, PBBS 37-27, and PBBS 38-
So 12.1 isn't part of the consent agenda. That's outside the consent agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just items on number 11.
Okay, then no.
Okay. So, Councillor McDermott, you have the resolution for the consent agenda.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lewis. The council approves the consent agenda as recommended.
And for the benefit of the public, before we vote, there are a number of proclamations and flag raisings requested for the month of September. One is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month through Miranda's Miracle. One is Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Niagara Month. The other is PKD, National Polycystic Kidney Disease Awareness Day. Also, CN Rail Safety Week, and the Arthritis Society of Canada Awareness Month. And we also have Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Awareness Month. So, busy September. Does anyone have any questions or comments with respect to the items in the consent agenda? If not, all those in favor of the recommendations? None opposed, that is carried. Okay, that then takes us to reports. And the first item is report PBBS 37-2026. And Councillor Christensen, you have that resolution.
Yes, Your Worship. That council, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott, that council approves the recommended planning application fees and charges as outlined in staff report PBBS 37-2026, and further that council directs staff to implement the recommended planning application fees and charges starting January 1st, 2027, as outlined in option 1 of staff report PBBS 37-2026, and further that council directs staff to make necessary revisions to the fees and charges bylaw.
Right. So I think this report was already before us. It was deferred from July. Councillor Noyes had moved it forward. However, that was a council and committee meeting. This is a council meeting, so I presume that's why we need a mover and a seconder. That report is on the floor then for questions or comments. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. I'll jump in first. I believe we're still waiting on clarification on the DC matter that
The Development Charge Reduction Program.
yeah, that prompted the initial deferral. And the other I wanted to mention was when looking through the report this time compared to the first time it came out, I did not see any comparisons with where other municipalities fall currently or under the proposed. And the other being, as time goes on, if we end up having less applications, I can appreciate having same staff complement for applications coming in, but if year over year we see a decline in applications, I don't see anything that speaks to efficiencies. And I'm just wondering if, when this does come back, because it sounds like it still needs to come back because we're waiting for further information on the DC relief side, if those additional points could be further clarified.
Sure. I don't know that the efficiencies are part of this type of report. That would be something that we would need to be considering in any event. So, are you looking to defer this further?
I think Councillor Noyes had her hand up. I'm sure there's some other members, but
I'll come back
I have
to
no
you.
problem with moving a deferral.
Yep, okay. Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Reading the report, and it was a very, very long report, again, with the consultant report added to it. So although I read it, I'm not 100% well-versed, but one of the things that jumped out at me, if I'm correct, that basically each unit is going to be charged a certain amount. It's kind of like a flat rate. Doesn't matter how big the building is or how small it is, it's going to be X amount of dollars. That's my understanding. I'm not sure I'm correct on that. And the average unit size that this report is using is 2,153 square feet per unit. I would be surprised how many units are that size. I mean, some of the larger houses, yes, but some of the apartments that we're looking at now, which also would be considered a unit, and some of the houses are now smaller houses, and we're encouraging small houses, but it doesn't matter if it's a small house, you're still going to get the flat rate charge. I don't know where they came up with the 2,153 square feet per unit. I think that's a little high for Fort Erie and a little bit high for whatever. And again, that price, using that as a number, then basically goes down the path of what it's going to cost per square foot. So if that number is not correct or somewhat inflated, then obviously the cost is going to be somewhat inflated. And I'd like to know more about where that 2,137, I'm sure we probably have some places that do have that square footage, but I would say the majority of new houses, particularly the townhouses, et cetera, do not even come close to that amount.
Ms. Dewaria, do you want to take a run at that?
Yes, Your Worship. I would like to take that information back and get that information for the councillor. And I'll prepare a memo or some other information that I can provide to council to address that question that the councillor has.
So it may be that there should be an updated report, or at least a supplementary report, because Councillor Lewis has also asked for some additional information. Councillor Noyes, anything further?
Yes, and I don't know what page it's on because, again, it's a long report. It comes down that there's, with all the calculations, et cetera, this is, I think, on the consultant's report, that there's 13.7 full-time staff equivalents dedicated to this process. But in some of the areas, when you look at the graph, it's like 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, there's nothing. And then there's 1 or 2%, like 0.1 or 0.2%. So across the board, it says 0, but in the final column, it says 0.1% or 0.2%, which when you add all of those 0.1s and 0.2s, it adds up to about 1.5% in regards to the full-time equivalent, but in regards to that 13.7 number. So I'm not quite sure how you can have zeros and then put an amount, put a number beside it in regards to staff equivalents. And the one thing that I found missing in this report is efficiency. I don't know, have we looked at efficiency in regards to other municipalities are, so let's say we do on an average of 1,000 applications a year. Other municipalities that do 1,000 applications per year, do they have the same 13.7 full-time equivalent employees dedicated to that? I don't know if I guess we constantly look for efficiencies, but I don't see anything in this report that says, well, maybe we could do it this way and cut down our costs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that was very good clarification of what Councillor Lewis was driving at. So you're thinking in terms of, processes that may be more efficient than what we're currently utilizing, that type of thing.
Yes, I do. And there's one other comment I wanted to make, and I know I'm not going to go on. I have many, but I won't make them all. In this report again, it says, well, we're here now, we're what, number 8 or number whatever on the graph, but it's only because we're doing it first. When the other municipalities do it, they're going to catch up with us, and we're going to be equal or even to the other municipalities, which when we pass this, we're going to be significantly higher. I think second from the top or something like that. And we're comparing ourselves to Milton, Hamilton, okay. I don't know if it's the same thing, but I have heard that umpteen times on different issues like the water bills. They're all going to catch up with us, Anne Marie. They're all going to do it monthly. They're all going to do this. We have the highest water per liter, but they're going to catch up with us.
Port Colborne actually has at
Does
least
Port
the
Colborne
highest.
caught up with,
At
what
least
about
the
the other?
highest. And
I'm
there's-
sorry?
There may be others. Port Colborne is the highest. Anyways, you're looking for some comparators in Niagara. And that's, I think, what also
Yeah,
Councillor Lewis was talking about.
They do give us comparable, and this report does give us comparables in Niagara, but it also kind of gets washed out with the Milton, Hamilton, as a comparable too. So anyway, I'll wait for the report to come back, and I won't keep going with all the questions because I can talk to Anamika about some of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If there is no one else, Councillor Lewis, did you want to move that we defer this to the September 28th meeting?
So moved.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Christensen? No debate. All those in favor? That is carried. That then takes us to the next item, which is the Community Improvement Plan and designation of community improvement project areas. Councillor Flagg, you have that resolution.
I do indeed, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lewis that report PBBS 36-2026 as attached as Appendix 9 be received for information purposes, and that report PBBS 38-1-2026 regarding the draft improvement plan CIP be received for information, and that Council direct staff to proceed with the preparation of 3 separate community improvement plans consisting of a core area community improvement plan, a brownfield community improvement plan, and the existing affordable housing community improvement plan. And that Council directs staff to reinstate the residential creation and intensification grant within the proposed core area community improvement plan in its former form, and that Council directs staff to prepare a bylaw designating the community improvement projects area identified in Appendix 1 pursuant to Section 28 of the Planning Act.
Questions or comments? Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one question. I just want to make sure that the previously earmarked funds for Crystal Beach still remain as proposed in this report.
Referred to again in the report.
I missed that in
Councillor,
there.
not Councillor, that would be a demotion. Director Dilwaria. Can you comment on that?
Yes, Your Worship. Through you to the councillor, yes, those funds would be allocated and reserved for Crystal Beach.
Thank you, and thank you, Your Worship. component to be continued. So I commend staff for the work on it, and certainly council for the support to get this done.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Dilawri, I had raised earlier the possibility of an expansion of the south end core area to include a greater portion of Princess Street. Is that something that's under contemplation?
Yes, Your Worship, I had a discussion with staff, and we can include that, that Princess Street area.
Okay, and then I'm looking for, I've made a note of something about option 1. Are we required to select an option relative to the brownfield and improvement plan? Maybe Ms. Smith, you could come up and tell us where I'm looking.
Through you, Your Worship. So option 1, I believe you're referring to where it says to proceed with 3 separate community improvement plans.
Right.
Consisting of a core area community improvement plan, a brownfield community improvement plan, and then to keep the existing affordable housing community improvement plan.
Right. So that's in essence, that's the fourth provision of this report.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much. And a very good report with all of the information that we were seeking before, and so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, all those in favor of the recommendations? None opposed, that is carried. That takes us to PBBS 41, 2026, and Councillor Noyes, you have the resolution for that. PBBS 41, so 12.3.
Okay. Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dubanow that Council approves the proposed amendment to the town's official plan as detailed in report PPS 41, 2026 for the land municipality known as 848 Garrison Road, Fort Erie, and further, the Council approves a proposed amendment to the town zoning bylaw 129-90 as amended, as detailed in report number PBBS-41, 2026 for the land municipality known as 848 Garrison Road, Fort Erie, and further, the council directs the holding provision under section 36 in brackets 1 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, be applied to the subject lands and not be removed until such time as the owner applicant shall demonstrate to the satisfaction of the Director of Infrastructure Services that sufficient capacity is available within the Allison Avenue sanitary pumping station and downstream sanitary sewer system to accommodate the proposed development. Where sufficient capacity is not available, any required infrastructure improvements or mitigation measures shall be identified and implemented at the owner's sole cost to the satisfaction of the town of the Niagara Region as applicable. The H holding symbol may be removed in phases from any portion of the subject lands where the owner applicant has demonstrated that sufficient sanitary servicing capacity is available to accommodate the development proposed within that phase. To the satisfaction of the Director of Infrastructure Services, the H holding symbol shall remain applicable to the balance of the subject lands until sufficient sanitary servicing capacity has been demonstrated for any subsequent phase. That council directs staff to submit the necessary official plan and zoning bylaw amendment bylaws.
Thank you. That report is on the floor for any questions or comments. Councillor Flagg?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wondering if our environmental planner is comfortable. I know that there's, or I see that there is some maybe disagreement, whether there's the possibility of bats being present in these reports. And I'm just wondering whether the environmental planner is comfortable with the applicant's proposal in that regard.
Director Dilawri?
Your Worship, through you to the councillor, the issue about the bats on the property is between the applicant and the MECP. There have been some changes made to the Species at Risk Act, and since that changes, municipality and town is not involved in those discussion. The issue is totally between the owner and MECP. And we have discussed that with MECP. It's between two of them.
Councillor Flagg?
Seems like a moot point for us then. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Christensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. I noticed that there's a reduction in the parking for the residential, and I'm quite aware of the location, and I'm just somewhat concerned, given the fact that we're talking of seniors, that we are talking of a significant walking distance to the shops, whether that is something that is advisable.
Going to ask the director that. The report seems to think that it is. Director?
Your Worship, through you to the councillor, the reason staff is supporting a reduction in parking for apartment use is because of the two reasons. One is outlined in the report itself, it's on the transit route. And secondly, in Appendix 2, there is a site plan which is attached. And based on that site plan, you would see that the applicant is proposing 27 parking spaces for the pharmacy and the office use. And in the evening hours, when the office and the pharmacy is not in use, those can offset the parking for the residential. And they comply with parking for all the other users with an exception to the apartment.
Councillor Christensen?
I'm concerned because although it is a transit route, it's 1 bus per hour. I'm uncomfortable with reducing parking. I understand the reasons, but I still have concerns that we may have challenges with respect to the usage, in addition to which, if there is, for example, in the restaurant, if there's a banquet or something like that, yes, there may well be an overuse of the other spaces. So I'm just having a concern with that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Dubanow?
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. I am in favor of this report. I'm actually glad to see it moving forward. I remember when this was originally brought forward to the Museum and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee. It was, we see a lot of projects come forward about adaptive reuse of buildings, or at least proposed reuse of buildings. And this was probably the first one where the committee kind of looked at it, and I'm speaking myself, of course, right now, but at least my opinion was that the committee looked at it and they were very impressed at the effort that had been taken to retain the Crookshank House, not as an afterthought to the development, like building buildings around it or putting additions onto it, but to actually making it a focal point. They were very sensitive at looking at sightlines from Garrison Road and using that as a fixture of the project. And that, at least in my opinion anyway, I think that's what adaptive reuse should all be about. It should be about, emphasizing and promoting these buildings and making them a part of the character of the neighborhood, rather than just, keeping a portion of it or whatever else. I will quickly mention about the parking. I understand that concern, but I would just point out that at least in my experience anyway, looking at Douglas Heights and other buildings, we don't tend to run into the two vehicle issue as much in a seniors building. It's not saying that it is not that there aren't seniors who have, two people living at the house who both have their own cars, but it tends to be less often. And, Douglas Heights is a good example where there's overflow into the community building next door. And it works. I mean, there's, occasionally I have some residents reach out about parking when there's an event at the community center or something, but those are transient, they go away, and then, things return to normal. So I'm comfortable with the parking. I think this is a fantastic project. I'm really looking forward to this moving forward. It's a local individual who's doing this. I don't think there's going to be any tire kicking on this, thank goodness. And it'll be really nice to see the Crookshank House refurbished and utilized for something that, rather than just driving by, it's something that hopefully we were able to utilize as a space in the community. So thank you very much, and I will be supporting this.
Thank you. Anyone? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. I've had an opportunity of meeting with the owner a while back, and I was also impressed with his plan. And one of the things, too, is the medical services he was hoping to attract to that place, including doctors and perhaps some diagnostic availability. But anyway, he was very keen on adding some medical services to that area of town.
Anyone else? Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to add my 2 cents. I share similar comments to Councillor Dubanow in terms of this development is exactly what we want on Garrison Road, and I think checks many boxes that I hope future developers consider to look at. The aspect of building in the cultural heritage component is something that, you know, we just don't see willingly coming from a lot of applicants like this one, and I think that's because the family is from Fort Erie, cares about Fort Erie, and wants to see Fort Erie grow like we do. I understand the concern with the parking, but I am comfortable with that at this point. So those are my only comments, and I will be supporting the report.
Anyone else? Ms. Dilwari, I just want to touch on this parking again. So what is the total number of parking spaces in this proposed development? All parking spaces. You mentioned 27 for the pharmacy. I counted 24, but what's the total number altogether?
So, Your Worship, based on the site plan that they have submitted, they require 318 parking spaces, and they are providing 293.
And of that 293, 144 are allocated to the apartment dwelling.
That's correct. So for apartment use, they require, I believe, based on our information, it's 168 is required. They're providing 144. So that's the only place that they are shy on parking.
So they've got adequate parking for the building to the east, which is the proposed clinic/pharmacy, and 8 units, residential units above. So that would be 12 parking for the residential units there at 1 1/4. Well, that's actually 1 1/2. It'd be 10, I guess.
If I may, Your Worship, for the units which are above the pharmacy, they require only 1 parking space because that's a mixed-use building.
Okay. And the amount that's allocated for the restaurant and banquet hall?
They comply.
Okay, I'm assuming that they do, but what's the number out of the
Let me
293?
Yes, let me just get that information. So for the restaurant, they require 70 parking spaces, and they are providing 70 parking spaces. For the 2-story commercial building, they require 40.8 parking spaces. They are providing 41 parking spaces. Existing historical building parking, they require 4. They are providing 5, so they are providing 1 additional parking there. It's only the clinic and office parking, they require 26.5. They are providing 27 parking spaces.
And is it your understanding that this is to be a phased project?
That's my understanding, but yeah, that's my understanding, yes.
Okay, so the relief that's being provided here is the difference between 318 and 293, or 25 parking spaces.
That's correct.
And if down the road that doesn't prove to be adequate, what solution is available, if any?
Once council will approve it, that would be the zoning bylaw, and they would get exemption from that many parking spaces. If in future we run into a problem that there is not adequate parking, I don't think we could do anything at that point of time.
Because Garrison Road isn't like a neighborhood road where you can park on the side of the street, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. And I had one other question with respect to the request for site-specific. Can you interpret what the residential open space, which is the last box on page 15, what that means. It says not applicable, but then it sets out a formula and then an analysis.
So usually residential open space is required when it's a mixed-use building, then you would require a balcony, but these are standalone apartment building. So in that situation, we are saying it's not applicable, but the applicant is still providing that additional amenity area.
Okay, so that's in favor of the applicant?
Applicant, yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Anyone else? I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. That then takes us to new business and inquiries, and we have a response to an inquiry. In the old days, acting clerk, we used to read those out so that the public was aware of what the response was to an inquiry made by a councillor. Is that something that you're interested in doing?
Sure, just allow me to set up here. Staff have reviewed the current provincial framework and the Ministry of Transportation's recent proposal to modernize Ontario's e-bike regulations. At present, the province has not finalized or implemented any new e-bike classifications. The Ministry of Transportation's consultation entitled Modernizing Ontario's Framework for Power-Assisted Bicycles, e-bikes, was posted on April 23, 2026, and the public consultation period closed on June 7, 2026. As of August 2026, the province has not released a decision or implementation timeline arising from that consultation. The proposed framework would establish two classes of power-assisted bicycles and provide clear distinctions between conventional e-bikes and heavier scooter or motorcycle-style electric vehicles as outlined in Appendix 1. Additional details, summary, EN, under the proposal. Class 1 e-bikes would be a pedal-assist bicycle limited to a maximum weight of 55 kilograms. Class 2 e-bikes would include throttle-equipped and cargo-style e-bikes with a maximum weight of 120 kilograms. Higher-powered scooters, moped, and motorcycle-style electric vehicles that do not meet the e-bike definition would no longer qualify as bicycles and would require licensing, registration, and insurance under an appropriate motor vehicle class. A proposed 12-month education and transition period would occur before full enforcement of any new classifications. At this time, the province has not finalized its proposed e-bike classification system. Based on the consultation materials released to date, there's no indication that the province intends to establish a province-wide standard governing e-bike access on municipal trails. Accordingly, municipal bylaws would continue to govern the use of e-bikes on town-owned trails unless and until the province adopts a regulatory framework that provides otherwise. Until any provincial changes are approved and brought into force, the current Ontario e-bike regulations remain in effect. Riders must comply with the existing Highway Traffic Act requirements and applicable municipal bylaws. While not specifically asked in the nature of the inquiry, it would be remiss not to mention that the use of e-bikes, e-scooters, and other motorized transportation devices may also be subject to the Town of Fort Erie's Parks and Beaches Bylaw number 22-2026, depending on the location and circumstances of their use. With respect to electric kick scooters specifically, these remain governed by Ontario's provincial e-scooter pilot program. Although the province permits municipalities to opt into the program through a municipal bylaw, the Town of Fort Erie has not elected to participate. As such, the operation of electric kick scooters is not currently permitted under the provincial pilot program within the Town of Fort Erie. Staff will continue to monitor the province's review of the 2026 consultation and will advise council should amendments be adopted that affect municipal authority over e-bikes, e-scooters, or trail use within the Town of Fort Erie. Staff will prepare a follow-up report on the e-bikes and e-scooters once the province releases its classification system, including recommendations for the Town of Fort Erie and a review of municipal best practices regarding their use on trails.
Thank you. Councillor Christensen, I believe you are the one who made the inquiry, not Councillor Lewis, but I'm sure he's also concerned about it. He thought of it.
Yes.
You picked it up. Good catch. Did you have any comments with respect to the response?
No, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to staff who prepared the information. I think it provides us with a very good description of the current position, and it also points to some of the challenges in regulating these at a municipal level. whether it's on the roads or on trails. There is a significant issue. And I would just like to note that there has been recent further discussion in the media the last few days with respect to the challenges of addressing the potential hazards and the lack of compliance with current law by a wide range of electric bike, scooter vehicles. So,
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. Before I go to further new business or inquiries, we did have a delegation this evening that talked about the Black Creek Road culvert. And I'm wondering, I'll ask both the CAO and acting clerk / CAO and the Director of Infrastructure Services whether this is something that, since there has been continuing dialogue between Mr. Hunter and our staff, whether this is something where we could reasonably request and expect some further comments from our staff with respect to their views as to potential modification or replacement, what the possible cost might be for the committee meeting September the 14th, I think it is. And if it is, then because this was a matter brought up at our council meeting, we could entertain a motion if councillors are interested. So first, the answer to my question.
If I could back up for a second.
Sure.
I didn't get a seconder for the response inquiry.
Oh, I don't
Does that
think.
require a vote?
I don't know that. Yeah, it should be, Christensen, but I don't know that I'm surprised we would need to have a resolution, but if it's just to receive it. Actually, Councillor Lewis, you can move that. Do you have a seconder? Okay, go ahead.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that council receives the response to inquiry for information purposes.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. So thank you, Mr. McQueen, for getting me back on track. So to my question now, unless it's been forgotten, in which case I'll have to try to resurrect it.
To the mayor, the question was, is
this something that staff, because they've been dealing with this, is this something that within a 3-week time frame to September the 14th, we could get some comments from staff relative to the presentation made by Mr. Hunter and the concerns he's raised regarding physical modification of the railing on this bridge, with some idea what the cost might be, and possibly some comments regarding temporary or permanent solutions if deemed necessary by staff. I don't want to prejudge what they're going to say.
The answer is yes.
Okay, so having heard that, can I have someone move a motion that we do that? Councillor Noyes, seconded by Councillor Christensen. Is everybody clear on where we're going with respect to this? Okay. All those in favor? That is carried. Sorry, opposed? Okay, carried. Okay, any other inquiries or new business? Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just on the theme of scooters, we did, I believe you, Your Worship, and myself got an email from a resident inquiring about the electric kick scooter pilot project. And I had a little bit of dialogue today with the Director of Infrastructure regarding not just the bylaw and the legal aspects, but also how it would impact the town with respect to how it would be permitted perhaps on our roads, but not necessarily regional roads if we passed a bylaw. I'm just wondering if the director could perhaps just maybe give a quick summary of some of the information he shared with me earlier today. It was great information and good thought if this comes up later on.
Director Peasel.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I did look into this, the e-scooter issue a little bit deeper. Only 16 municipalities out of the 444 in Ontario opted into the program. If we were to opt into the program and allow the kick scooters in town, we would have to obviously write the bylaw to allow scooters to be ridden on our municipal streets, but not necessarily on MTO roads, regional roads, or controlled access highways, which are absolutely prohibited.
Councillor Dubanow?
So, and just to say the obvious, so roads like Garrison Road, Central Avenue, Dominion Road, roads that are typically very commonly used, even if we did pass a bylaw like this, they wouldn't necessarily be permitted because they're regional roads. Is that correct?
That is correct. And there are other rules in place too. Riders must be at least 16 years of age, and people that are 16 and 17 years must wear a helmet. There are some restrictions to the scooters themselves. They must not exceed 24 kilometers an hour.
Anything further, Councillor Dubanow?
Yeah, and it's my understanding they can't be operated on sidewalks either. Is that?
That is correct. The only way they can be operated on sidewalks is if you're traversing through a tunnel or under a bridge.
That's excellent information. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any other new business? Councillor Lewis?
Your Worship, and just a quick question to the Director of Infrastructure. If you're able to provide a brief update in terms of steps being taken to mitigate some of the traffic hazard problems at Point Abno Road and Michener as of recently?
Director?
Through the mayor to you, Councillor. Staff have recognized that there have been some issues at Point Abno and Michener Road. A few incidences have taken place, a few accidents. Staff are addressing these concerns by implementing in the future a four-way stop. We are going to be bringing that to TCC on September 16th as well. We're hoping to have the steps and design in place for the next council meeting.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Then that's going to take us to closed session, and Councillor McDermott, you have the resolution for us to move into closed session?
Yes, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lewis. The council does now go into closed session at 7:27 to consider the following. 14.1, closed meeting minutes for July 20th, 2026. 14.2, Bridgeburg Station Downtown Business Improvement Area Board of Management appointments pursuant to Section 239-2B of the Municipal Act 2001, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. 14.3, Report LLS 11-2026, proposed sale of lands, lots 478, 495, 496 on Plan 44, pursuant to Section 239-2C of the Municipal Act 2001, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And 14.4, confidential human resource matter, personal matter, pursuant to Section 239-2B of the Municipal Act 2001, personnel matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. We're back in the council chamber, and Councillor Lewis, you have the resolution for us to rise and reconvene from closed session.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott. The council does now rise and reconvene from closed session at 8:23 p.m. with report 14.1 that council approves the closed session minutes of July 20th, 26. 14.2 that council appoints Chris Entea and Bradley Brunton to the Bridgeburg Station Downtown Business Improvement Area Board of Management for the term ending November the 14th, 2026, or until their successors are appointed. And 14.3 that council receive confidential report LLS 11/2026 regarding the proposed sale of lands lot 478, 495, and 496 on Plan 444, and authorizes the town solicitor to proceed as directed in closed session. And 14.4 that council authorize staff to proceed as directed in closed.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Unopposed, that is carried. That then takes us to motions. Councillor Lewis, you have a motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott. Whereas Niagara Health previously committed to a 3-hospital system, including a continued operation of the Fort Erie Urgent Care Center at the Fort Erie Douglas Memorial Site, and whereas Niagara Health has revised its plans and no longer intends to continue operations at the Fort Erie Urgent Care Center, Douglas Memorial Site, following the opening of the new Niagara South Hospital, and whereas the town of Fort Erie has made ongoing efforts to work collaboratively with Niagara Health to address growing health needs and provide a local solution through the Reimagining Douglas Memorial that includes the continuation of Fort Erie urgent care services at the Douglas Memorial Site, and whereas commitments made by Niagara Health to the residents of Niagara Region, especially Niagara South, including Fort Erie, have not been fulfilled, and there appears to be limited collaboration with the town of Fort Erie and the residents of Niagara. Whereas the town of Fort Erie also has serious concerns regarding Niagara Health's operating deficit of $28 million, and whereas the town of Fort Erie has additional concerns regarding governance, transparency, including the limited ability of Niagara Health Board members to directly engage with, respond to, or answer questions from the members of the public and the community. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Fort Erie formally requests the resignation of the Niagara Health Board of Directors and Chief Executive Officer, and that the town of Fort Erie calls upon the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, and the Honourable Sylvia Jones, Minister of Health, to appoint a provincial supervisor to oversee operations at Niagara Health and to ensure appropriate funding is provided for continuation of urgent care services in Fort Erie to meet local healthcare needs, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to the region of Niagara's 12 area municipalities that make up the region of Niagara, the Association of Municipalities Ontario, and the Rural Ontario Municipal Association.
Did you wish to speak to that, Councillor Lewis?
If you can imagine there's more to share, I would like to speak to it briefly, and I know this has been an ongoing notice of motion and has returned several times for council's consideration. I just want to start by mentioning that the true intent behind this motion is not about picking a fight with Niagara Health or the province. It's about attention of decision makers and creating conditions necessary for us to work together on solutions that protect local healthcare here in Fort Erie. I want us to work with Niagara Health. I know council wants to work with Niagara Health and the province, but collaboration has to be both ways. And after years of advocacy, even going back to my first time, I do not believe that Fort Erie has had that level of meaningful collaboration that our community deserves. I just want to go on and mention that at the recent AMO conference in Ottawa, there was an opportunity for all of us, if we took it, to speak with other representatives and municipal leaders and colleagues from across the province. And the one thing that struck me was how there are a number of communities that are smaller than Fort Erie that continue to have hospitals There are urgent care centers and other local health services that do exist. And in speaking with representatives from these communities, it was apparent that the successful healthcare solutions are those that are brought through cooperation with the municipalities, the local health organizations, and the province working together to find a model that works for our community. That has not been the experience I have seen with Niagara Health. Fort Erie has repeatedly come to the table to advocate for solutions, and we have not had a willing partner. When speaking with some of the other municipalities at AMO, and I mentioned some that are smaller than us that have hospitals and some that have urgent care facilities in their community, there was one common theme amongst all of them, and that was a health board locally that was prepared to come on board and be a partner with the community to find services that are needed in those communities. And that has not happened. There's also the issue of trust and accountability. Niagara Health previously made the commitment to a 3-hospital system and continued urgent care center in Fort Erie, and that has changed. And I think when municipalities are being faced with asking to pay for something while the service is leaving the community, when there's an operating deficit to the amount that we are seeing with Niagara Health, I think it's only reasonable for a municipality and a council like ours to continue to ask those tough questions. The other is on the governance structure. You know, we've been advocating for commitments, we haven't had them. The request for a provincial supervisor is about really bringing in another level of government to allow for some accountability and some oversight in a situation where that has not happened. And more importantly, it's about asking the province to become directly involved and engaged in trying to find a solution that benefits the residents of our community. Ultimately, my preferred outcome is not confrontation, but this motion has been on the floor for a considerable amount of time, and I know we came back from AMO. We've had some positive conversations with ministers. We've had positive conversations with PAs. We've had ministers and PAs look at us like, really? Which to me was shocking. And the issue really comes down to, in order to get this done, we need to have a local health board that's willing to be a partner and work with us to find a solution, and that's something we can't see. So I just want to say in closing that this motion, in my opinion, sends a strong message, but behind every message is a simple objective. We want to work together. We want to protect access to healthcare for the people of Fort Erie, and we're asking Niagara Health, the province of Ontario, to recognize the legitimate concerns of our community, build trust, and work collaboratively. And nothing would make me happier than to have a sit-down meeting between the town of Fort Erie, Niagara Health, the province of Ontario, talk about the issues and try to come up with a solution. And I think that's our ultimate goal. So this motion is coming back for consideration. I'm interested to hear what some of the other colleagues around the horseshoe have to say, but I want to be perfectly clear. Nothing would make me happier than to see this motion completely go away and to know that we have a partner in Niagara Health that is working out for the best interest of our community, because after all, Niagara Health is part of our community. So I'll yield my time, hope to hear from others and see where this goes tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Anyone else? Councillor Dubanow and then Councillor Noyes.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Councillor Lewis expressed a sentiment that I also experienced at AMO as well, sitting in those meetings. There was actual shock among some of the ministers about the situation at Douglas Memorial, and you know, we've spent the last 4+ years, probably even longer, working on a government relations strategy, which I think has been very successful to actually get our issues and our concerns to the right people at Queen's Park so they understand what we're dealing with. And it's not just about going there to complain, just to yell at them about everything they're doing wrong. We bring solutions to them. We are very proactive. We think outside the box. We look at ways that we can accomplish a goal without necessarily it being all on someone else. We recognize that there's an onus on us to be able to, be creative, provide solutions. And, I was with Councillor Lewis at AMO as well, running into other members of provincial parliament, just, everyone is mingling there and talking. And, we did hear about other communities that have not identical systems, but very similar to what we're trying to do here in Fort Erie. And, I'm one individual sitting here at this horseshoe. I'm one councillor and I have one opinion. But if I were to say that, looking at this from everything I've seen and everything I've known, I think the roadblock that we are still running into is, for better or worse, it's Niagara Health. And I'm genuinely convinced that if Niagara Health was willing to partner with us, or at least not even necessarily partner, but just to say, you know what, we have our own plan, but you know what, we like what Fort Erie's doing, let's, yes, go ahead and do it. It could even alter the way they're doing things. I don't understand this because it could potentially be a win-win-win for all parties involved. And I think, for better or worse, Queen's Park, the provincial leadership is starting to see that. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's bureaucratic, I don't know if it's longstanding political issues or things that have dragged on for, a long time. But for whatever reason, I feel that Niagara Health, we just can't gain agreement with them. And I agree with Councillor Lewis. This is not a motion I take lightly. It is a very serious motion. It's very direct. It's calling into question the work that individuals have done. But I think the work that we have done here locally to advocate for the needs of our community, to be creative, to look at ways that we can all help each other out, has fallen, unfortunately, maybe not necessarily on deaf ears, but maybe in different ears. So I think we need to have a hard look at this. Maybe a supervisor comes in, asks the same questions we do. Certainly when we're being asked for a local contribution to a new hospital, when we're losing the urgent care center, and Niagara Health has admitted that we're losing the urgent care center. It's no surprise there. That's a real kick in the teeth to a community that has been fighting for their hospital for decades, then to be told, oh, and by the way, we want several $1 million. We committed $3 million. They want even more than that. I think the total approaches up close to 10. I was actually sitting in the airport on my way to a trip with my kids when I read that letter, and I burst out in laughter, and everyone in the airport thought I was crazy. But that's how I feel about this. It is asinine. It is beyond anything that I can comprehend that Niagara Health would be removing services from this community, not even willing to be kind of say, oh yeah, well, we support what you're doing, stay out of our way, we'll, allow you to move in your direction. And then they have the audacity to ask us for that money. And I think there is a disconnect here in what we're trying to achieve and what we're trying to advocate for our community and what Niagara Health is doing. And I represent the residents of this community. I was elected to speak truth to, I think, what's the phrase they use, truth to power, to the things that they bring to our table. And I believe by doing something like this, we are sticking up for the residents of our community who have been fighting for this hospital and the services there. It has been a death through 1,000 cuts, removing services. We had 24/7 urgent care. Then it turned into, not 24/7 urgent care. And then it turned into certain days were closing because, so it seems like they're just slowly peeling everything away until there's nothing there. And then, oh, well, you don't have anything at all. We don't even need to run the building. So I think it's I think it's crunch time. I think we've done a fantastic job with Queen's Park. I think Niagara Health needs to get the message that this council and this community is very serious about the future of Douglas Memorial Hospital and services provided there, urgent care, diagnostic, some of the other things, transitional bed. There are things that we can do. We want to be a partner. I feel that this is a win for the municipality, a win for Queen's Park, and a win for Niagara Health, and I don't know why Niagara Health doesn't see it that way. So that's my thought on this, Your Worship. Thank you.
Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Despite the numerous petitions, the numerous organizations, the numerous conferences, and I see Heather sitting in the audience here, the hard work of so many volunteers, so much community support, and also the provision of all the stats that have been provided to them in regards to why we need to keep the urgent care, how our population is going to increase, the number of senior citizens we have, our closeness to the border. Despite all the stats, all the information we've provided, we haven't moved the needle with Niagara Health. It seems that they're set in stone, that they made the decision umpteen years ago, and come hell or high water, that's the direction we're going to go in. And unless we have a change and who is making the decisions in regards to this, we're not going to see any change in their decision. And I think Councillor Lewis's motion right now, I'm going to support it because it basically is asking for a change in those who make the decisions. And the timing is good because it's following AMA, where we had a good response from different levels of government to say, yeah, we're going to take a look at this. So I'm fully in support of this, and I'm sad that it's taking this long, and we have to do this to really get their attention, because I don't think we've gotten their attention. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor McDermott.
Right before, and I remember when Ms. Seven Piper was there, we pretty much had to get a supervisor to come in and run the place, which we were successful in doing. And that supervisor at least reopened the discussion with municipalities throughout the community, and for all intents and purposes, if I remember correctly, promised us that we would have urgent care with the way we changed things. That was Dr. Smith. That we were going to put a urgent care at Highway 58, and we were going to have a self-standing one here in town. Of course, the NHS breaks more promises than they keep, and basically walk into our community and dictate to us what we're going to be doing, what our health care is going to look like. This health minister that we deal with now is not like the one we dealt with before. She was more concerned about the health care of our area, and she gave us full shrift when we were there. If it wasn't for Debbie Matthews, we wouldn't have an urgent care center. So, her word was very good. What I got out of our meeting at Roma, the health minister was aloof in her responses, not very hopeful, and she hasn't been very helpful in between the time we were at Roma and the time we were here. So, I'm all for this motion. I think it's time to get a change of leadership there, and if a supervisor get a supervisor that is worth his or herself to be here to help us get our health care that we deserve. I don't know. We've had our difficulties with the province, whether it be health care, whether it be slots. We seem to be the whipping boy for a lot of people trying to destroy things that we have built up here over time, whether that be the racetrack, who's been here well over 100 years. Douglas Memorial Hospital is, the standard that we've been used to. They come in and help to close that, no matter what we thought. And they'll continue to do that if we allow them to do it. This motion is a good motion. Will they resign? No, probably not. But I think we at least have to stand up and say, let's get with the program here and put the heat on them to give us exactly what we need. And all it is the same thing they were supposed to deliver to us day in and day out, the promise of the NHS to the town of Port Erie. So I think we should make them keep their promise. And, I know that there's not one councillor here, Your Worship, that is not going to be fighting this battle to the end. And we're not going to accept that we don't have an urgent care center here. We're not going to accept that at all. So I guess the fight's just beginning. That's all I have to say.
Anyone else before I go back to Councillor Lewis? Councillor Christensen.
Oh, thank you. This is a question. I do know that we sought a meeting with the minister at AMO. We were not offered that, and that I believe there's a request to meet with the minister. Is there any update on that, or is this something that would modify any decision at this point?
Yeah, so we didn't get a meeting with the minister at AMO, and we've been working to try to set up a meeting. Obviously, she was at AMO when we were there, so her office has to respond to our request yet. So we don't have a meeting set up yet. Having knowing what Councillor Lewis found out during the course of AMO, excuse me, seems pretty apparent that we should also be looking to try to get Niagara Health on board. That would be the easiest route for us to get what we're looking for, and why that hasn't happened to date is a mystery. It doesn't cost them anything and would certainly improve healthcare, not just in Fort Erie, but in Niagara. So the short answer to your question is we're working on that.
Is that something we should be considering? I'm just thinking whether would it be stretching it out inappropriately if there were a deferral to give 2 or 3 weeks to see if there's any result?
I think it would be helpful if we could get an opportunity to find out when we're going to be able to meet with the minister, number one, and number two, I like Councillor Lewis's suggestion that maybe there should be a three-way meeting, the minister, Niagara Health, and the town of Fort Erie, and we can maybe make some headway with respect to that. So that would be the only reason that I would think that some additional time might be helpful.
So I won't say anything at this point. I understand, Councillor.
Yeah, Councillor Lewis?
Yeah, just one comment, because, I just want to remind people that they had agreed to it. It was part of their plan. Their plan has changed. And the letter that we received a couple of months ago that acknowledges for the first time ever from Niagara Health that urgent care services are needed in Fort Erie is one that, Councillor Dubanow, you mentioned the increase in funding. It's extortion. Anywhere else, that would be called extortion. They've admitted we need it. They admit it's a service that's needed. They refuse for some reason to get involved to help us pass the next hurdle. But I just wanted to clarify, that is what that was. Clear as day to me. Like I said before, my intent with this motion on behalf of council is to try and move the needle, get some attention, and to be able to resolve this matter with partnership with Niagara Health. I'm reluctant to defer a motion that has been deferred several times because Niagara Health has known this has been lingering and has done nothing to do that. That being said, in the essence of collaboration, I would be open to a 1-month deferral to try and get such meeting and conversation started. But my expectations are during that time that a meeting needs to be scheduled. This is important, it's urgent, It's been years in discussion with no movement from either the province or Niagara Health. We're ready to go to the table. I think returning to the next regular council meeting is more than fair if that's what someone wishes to move. It's been on the books long enough. I don't see 30 days making it any worse, but I think at some point, if they're not ready to dance, then we need to find a new dancing partner.
Any preferred music that you would like?
Pardon me?
Any preferred music? Councillor Christensen.
May I speak first before I make
Yes,
any motion?
you may.
Okay, just to make sure. I want to be very clear on this. I've worked in the healthcare sector peripherally and in the community sector since about 1981, 1982, so a long time ago. I've worked with hospitals. Hospitals look after their own business. Some hospitals work very effectively, and we spoke to some people in, I believe it was North Grenville. We didn't speak to those people, but we spoke to a representative where the hospital is working actively. I know people at St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto. They have a primary care unit attached to them to look after their particular clients. They've reached out to those communities. Women's College Hospital in Toronto. There are probably many others like that across the province who work integrally with their community. And I would say, by the way, having done strategic work around board development, one of the fundamental obligations of a community board or a nonprofit board is to, in fact, represent the community that it serves and to listen. And I don't believe that having the mayor, the elected mayor of a municipality, come to a meeting and not be allowed to actually engage in dialogue with the board is not appropriate governance. So make it very, very clear where I stand. Some of the conversations that we and others had at AMO gave us some help. It may give us leverage, and it may well, I think the use of the term extortion is appropriate and accurate, and it is something that I think we need to lay out there very clearly, that that's precisely what it is, and that is not appropriate for an organization that is legislated to serve a community. The fact that this organization has demonstrated poor faith time and again in its legitimate job of establishing a tertiary care center of excellence in a number of important clinical areas. If I have a heart attack, I want to make sure they're there, that there's a good place. But they're ignoring of the needs of Fort Erie residents, of the environment within which we live, and the lack of representation that I see on that hospital board for the community members that need that health care is critical. So I want to make that very plain. However, I do believe that given that we have already asked for a meeting with the minister, that we have now made it abundantly clear where we all stand, I would ask that we defer this for no more than 1 month, and then we drop the hammer.
So that would be September the 28th. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor McDermott? So it's September the 28th for this matter to be deferred. That part is not debatable. All those in favor of the deferral? That is carried. And thank you very much, all of you, for your comments with respect to this. That takes us to the next item. Councillor Noyes, you have a motion.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lewis. revised, okay, I'm reading the revised one, but it's, okay. Whereas the town of Fort Erie operates an administrative monetary penalty system, the AMPS, pursuant to bylaw number 111, 2019 as amended for the enforcement of municipal bylaws, and whereas the current administration of bylaw number 111, 2019 requires that where a property has multiple registered owners, a separate administrative monetary penalty is issued to each registered owner for the same bylaw contravention. And whereas this practice results in the total penalty increasing based solely on the number of registered owners rather than the nature and the severity or the frequency of the contravention. And whereas council recognizes that this approach may create an inequitable financial burden for owners, including spouses, family members, and business partners, compared to properties with a single registered owner that are subject to the same contravention. And whereas staff advice respecting the administration of the town's administrative monetary penalty system accurately reflects current town policy and standard operating practices, and whereas the current requirement to issue an administrative monetary penalty to each registered owner reflects the manner in which the town administrative monetary penalty system was structured when enacted, and it is not a legislative requirement imposed by the province of Ontario. And where council has the authority under the Municipal Act 2001 and the Town of Fort Erie Administrative Monetary Penalty System bylaw number 111, 2019 to establish and amend administrative penalties, schedules, and related fee structures. And whereas staff are currently required to issue administrative penalties to all persons listed on the title in accordance with the current structure of the town's administrative monetary penalty system. And whereas council is the governing body responsible for the approval of town's administrative monetary penalty system schedules, may consider amendments to the current system that direct staff to review the present alternative approaches for council's consideration. Whereas staff have previously reviewed the practice of issuing separate administrative monetary penalties to individual property owners and identified potential alternatives available to council. Now therefore it be resolved that council directs staff to review the enforcement and issuance of practices under the administrative monetary penalty system, bylaw number 111, 2019, with respect to properties having multiple registered owners, and further that the staff be directed to report back to council and committee within 90 days, including any required bylaw amendments outlining options for council's consideration to establish a single administrative monetary penalty per contravention notice regardless of the number of registered owners, including but not limited, amendments to the AMPS penalty schedules that provide alternative approaches for the properties with multiple registered owners, including tiered or conditional penalty structures and maximum collective penalties for a single contravention, and alternative collection and liability mechanisms, including the issue of a single penalty notice for a property and implementation of joint and severable liability among registered owners where appropriate. And I'd like to speak to that.
Yes,
I think
go ahead.
the bottom line, well, not the bottom line, is council has the power to change the system. The only reason we're doing it the way we're doing is because we enacted bylaw number 111, 2019. And at that point, when that suggestion came back for us, when it says the penalty notice is issued to the owners of property who have 15 days to pay, et cetera, nowhere in that report did it say we were going to multiply the fine by the number of owners. Maybe we should have assumed that, but it was not clear at all. And the fact that that was in 2019, and I was still concerned. In 2023, I brought it up again, saying this just doesn't seem right. Like, I mean, if you husband and wife are owners of the property, they each get fined $600 each. When the guy next door has the same problem, only gets fined $600 because he's only one owner. It just didn't make any sense to me. And the more I looked into it, the more we do have the ability to do it jointly or severably, that we can issue one. What we're doing now, we can do. I mean, there's no question. What we have been doing is legal. We can do it because of the bylaw we passed. We can change that bylaw. And you still have to notify all the owners. All the owners get a notice, but the fine is one. In other words, it's $600 collectively or jointly. It's not $600 each. And there's a lot of examples I can give you, but I think you guys can all kind of figure it out if there's 3 people, et cetera. And I know one of the reasons in 2023, we said, well, if they don't like it, we have a hearing, they can appeal the process. So I know somebody who's gone through this appeal process. There was more than one owner, and they were all charged. That requires they hired their own legal representative. Each person who gets the ticket and wants to appeal has to appeal. It's not like one person appeals for 4 of you. If there's 4 of you, each one of you have to send an appeal. Each of you have to show up for the hearing, et cetera, et cetera. And I understand there's 3 staff members present for the hearing, and they forgave it all. They forgave all but one was the end result, and I think that tends to be the practice anyway. All of them but one get forgiven. So I don't understand. Like, I'm hoping for council support, and I will be asking for a registered vote. It only makes sense to me that if there's one contravention, there should be one fine. All the owners are responsible for it, and collectively or jointly, and it can be done. And the other thing too, like one of the examples that in 2023 they said why they don't want to do it doesn't make any sense, because let's say you have 4 people own the property. All of them get a $1,000 fine because the fine is $1,000. So they get multiplied. Each one has to pay $4,000. So one person says, okay, I'm going to pay my $1,000. Here's my $1,000. The other 3 don't. Well, guess where that $3,000 that hasn't been paid goes on? It goes on the property tax. So the guy who paid his $1,000 is still responsible for his portion of the property tax. So it doesn't make any sense to keep it the way we have it now, but to change it and to be fair and not punitive. Thank you.
Councillor Noyes, just on technical basis, the 90 days would run out November the 23rd. The council meeting immediately prior to that is the inaugural meeting for the next term of council. And the meeting prior to that is October the 19th. So that the 90 day, that's 19 plus 30, 49 plus the 6 days left in August. So that's really 60-something days. I wonder, would you be agreeable to, instead of 90 days, say before November the 30th, which is another council meeting?
The sooner the better.
Yes, I get that, but it would
And it does
be
say
before.
within 90 days, so it doesn't prevent us from coming earlier.
Right, but, yeah, but it would have to be, if it's going to be earlier and it's going to be a council meeting, it has to be October the 18th, which is significantly ahead, so.
That works fine for me.
So then that's really 60 days.
No, the sooner the better, when we can do it. I'm not sure how much time staff will require. I know I've had discussions with Philip. I don't know how much time they're going to require for it.
Why don't we say no later than November the,
I think you said the 19th.
would I say the 30th? Why don't we say no later than November 30th?
I thought we wanted it before.
No, that would be, well, if we do it before, it would have to be October the 18th.
Is there a problem with that?
Well, if you're going to give them time, I don't know. Is this something that could be addressed by October the 18th? Mr. Riley? You're the one who'll be doing the work on this.
It's almost 2 months.
Well, it's not.
I'm good with the October date.
Okay. So then let's say, let's say 60 days then. Within 60 days.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak to this? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor of the resolution? None opposed, that is carried with the amendment to 60 days instead of 90.
Yeah, I did ask for a registered vote, but I'm okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm okay with not.
Well, since everybody voted in favor, I guess we can, okay. Okay. Were you sensing some resistance?
For clarification, are the minutes to reflect a unanimous vote, or do you wish to have them recorded in favor?
I think the minutes can simply say it's a unanimous vote, and Councillor Noyes is agreeable to that. Okay, that then takes us to motions, and I've received a memo from staff that indicates that they'd anticipated that this motion was going to be brought, and they have been working on a report which they anticipate will be brought forward in next month, and that's with respect to the renaming of Bowen Road Park. So we'll see what comes out of that. That then takes us to, yes.
Notice of motion?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a notice of motion with respect to the Bay Beach Annual Report. I guess it would be returnable the next regular council meeting. I'll submit that to the clerk, but the essence is that staff be directed to report back to council as part of the 2026-2027 budget process on the financial implications of providing free beach passes to Fort Erie residents, including the revenue generated from resident and non-resident passes, the estimated financial impact of eliminating residential pass fees, options to offset resulting losses in revenue, including potential adjustments to non-residential fees, and other potential revenue sources, partnership, sponsorship opportunities, or other operational opportunities that could help offset operational costs associated with Bay Beach, reduce the financial impacts on ratepayers, and prioritize residents over visitors.
Thank you, and that came out of the last meeting when I indicated to you had to bring a notice of motion. Okay,
That
so
is
that would be
correct.
returnable September the 28th. Any other notices of motion? If not, then we'll go to bylaws. Are there any bylaws other than the ones that have to be removed from the package because of Councillor Flagg's declarations of pecuniary interest? Councillor Noyes.
Yes, bylaw number is 66, 2026,
It's already out.
and bylaw number 68, 2026. 67 and 68.
So 66 is already
Yeah,
out.
I'm sorry, it
And-
should be 67.
Okay, you want 67 and 68 dealt with
67
separately?
and 68, yeah, the Village Creek ones.
Okay.
Your Worship, you said 66, 2026 is out?
59, yeah, so
Okay.
59, 65, and 66 are out because of Councillor Flagg. 66 and 67, sorry, 67 and 68 are out at the request of Councillor Noyes and will be dealt with separately. So Councillor Dubanow, you have the streamlined bylaw package,
Even more streamlined than before, Your Worship.
more streamlined.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that the bylaw package containing 60-2026 to amend delegation of authority bylaw 16709 and repeal bylaw 88-2023 insurance claims and risk management, 61-2026 to remove part lot control from block 66, plan 59M-519 Harbor Town Village subdivision, 568, 570, and 572 Mississauga Avenue. 62-2026 to name the municipal park located at 3440 Thunder Bay Road as Earl Plato Park. 63-2026 to authorize the extension of the business banking agreement with TD Commercial Banking for the provision of banking services. 64-2026 to remove part lot control from blocks 6, Plan 59M506 Royal Ridge Subdivision, 503 Royal Ridge Drive, is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? Unopposed, that bylaw package, streamlined bylaw package is on the floor for questions or comments. Then, Councillor Christensen, you have the third and final reading for that bylaw package. So your resolution will leave out 67 and 68 because they're going to be dealt with separately.
So, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott, that bylaws 60-2026 to 64-2026 inclusive, and bylaws 67-20.
Those, not 67 and 68.
Not, okay, oh, yes. Okay, let me see.
Given third and final reading.
Are given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and clerk under the corporate seal.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. So I'm going to go back to you, Councillor. No, you know what? I'm going to come back to you later. I'm going to go to Councillor McDermott, and we're going to deal with 59, 65, and 66. You've got that resolution. It's Resolution 18.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that the bylaw package containing 59-2026 to authorize the exchange of lands for the Spears High Point pedestrian corridor, 65-2026 to enact an amendment to the official plan adopted bylaw 78-2025 for the town of Port Erie Planning Area Amendment 2, 19 Derby Road, and 66-2026 to amend zoning bylaw 129-90 as amended, 19 Derby, are given first and second reading.
All those in favor? Opposed? That bylaw those bylaws are on the floor for questions or comments. If there are none, then Councillor Noyes, could you provide third and final reading for those bylaws, please?
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dubanow that bylaw number 59-2026 and 65-2026 to 66-2026 inclusive are given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and the clerk under the corporate seal.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So I'm going to go back to you, Councillor Dubanow, for bylaws 67 and 68.
Yes, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lewis that bylaw 67-2026 to assume ownership and responsibility for the primary services for the Village Creek Estates Subdivision Phase 3, Stage 2, Registered Plan 59M-438, and bylaw 68-2026 to assume ownership and responsibility for the secondary services for the Village Creek Drive Subdivision Phase 3, Stages 1 and 2, Registered Plan 59M-438 are given first and second reading.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Those bylaws are on the floor for questions or comments. Councillor Noyes?
Thank you. And I did, my concern is that in regards to this is basically the assumption agreements. I'm going to kind of talk to the two of them together because I'm not quite sure how primary services and secondary services, my concern is the same for both. I did have an opportunity to talk to the Director of Infrastructure and also the Director of Planning. I'm not, okay, the problem now, I live right beside, I live close to it. I brought up that there were some trees not looking too healthy, and those trees were, I think 7 trees were replaced. But the replacement trees don't look too terribly healthy either. It doesn't seem to there be any watering or any care for them. So I'm not quite sure that if we assume this, then there are trees. Right now they're their trees, and they would have to replace them. So I'm not sure where we are with that. If there's an agreement with Lawns and Moors who provided the trees, if there's a 2-year guarantee, then I don't really have a problem with the trees, because if they're dead, then Lawns and Moors have to replace them. But if it's not, if the warranty doesn't follow to the town, if we assume them, I'm not sure, because some of them do not look too healthy again. And the other thing is that the community mailbox that's on Etzel, it doesn't have a concrete platform. And again, I don't know if this is part of the development. The developer has to put that concrete platform in.
I would think that would be kind of
There's nothing. There's nothing. There's nothing. There's you know how these mailboxes sit on pedestals, like a concrete pedestal. But that's to raise it up so that you're not kind of on your knees trying to get to the lower box. But there's no concrete underneath it. There's grass on one side and gravel on the other side. It's not accessible. And I don't know whose responsibility is to do that. I don't know if that's part of the developer's responsibility or part of Canada Post. I don't know.
So you've got 2 issues there, Councillor Noyes. Let's deal with the first one. Ms. Delwaria, I believe your department is responsible for the trees. What's the status of those trees in terms of warranty if they need to be replaced if we assume ownership?
Your Worship, if we assume the ownership, the responsibility would be on staff to get it replaced. So if there is a concern, I believe this should be flagged right now, and we should not be taking responsibility of those dead trees.
Okay, so does the warranty apply? Is it transferred to the town? If you're sure, great. If you're not sure, we can always defer this bylaw.
I would recommend deferring this assumption for trees, which would be the secondary services.
Right, okay, so that's bylaw 68. The second issue raised by Councillor Noyes has to do with Canada Post, community mailbox. Director of Infrastructure Services, are you familiar with who's responsible for that? Or is that something, again, that I should go back to Director Dilwaria?
Your worship, that would be Canada Post that would be responsible for it. We're happy to reach out to Canada Post and make sure that the mailbox is suitable for that environment.
Okay. Councillor Noyes?
If we're certain that if we accept this, that it's not going to fall on the town to move it and replace them, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know what the development of
Community box?
the community box.
It's not our property.
No, but I don't know if in the development, I'm trying to remember some of the site plans that we have, we say the developer has to provide the sidewalk, the developer has to provide, like, we said many times, a standing area, like if the kids are catching the bus and stuff. So I don't know. I don't know if Canada Post does concrete or not. I don't know if that's part of the, somewhere in the 200 different agreements or whatever conditions on the site plan. It just needs to be fixed. And I brought this up a year ago. It hasn't been fixed, and I don't want it to fall onto the town if we should have asked for it now.
So that would be bylaw 68. That would be a secondary service. The primary services are really the water, wastewater, storm, base road structure, concrete curbs, and street lighting. So bylaw 68 would be the bylaw that could be deferred.
I don't know if it fell under that because it's not under either one of them. That's not listed, so that's why I wasn't sure.
68 is going to be deferred in any event, and certainly community mailbox is not a primary service. That would be a secondary service.
Okay, that's fine.
So did you want to defer 68, 2026?
Yes, let's defer 68, 2026.
Okay, so on the issue of timing, how critical is it if this is passed sooner rather than later? Could this be deferred to September the 28th?
Your worship, that would be fine.
Okay, so Councillor Noyes is moving that we defer bylaw 68, 2026 to September the 28th. Can I have a seconder, Councillor Lewis? All those in favor of that deferral? That is carried. So anything further on 67, Councillor Noyes?
Nothing further.
Okay, so then we can go to third and final reading on that, and that was Councillor Christensen. So just bylaw 67.
Yeah. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDermott, that bylaw 67-2026 is given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and clerk under the corporate seal.
All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That then takes us to the confirmatory bylaw, and that would be Councillor Lewis for first and second reading. It's resolution number 14. Sure.
Dog ate my homework. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Christensen, that bylaw number 69, 2026, to confirm the actions of council at its council and committee meeting held on August the 10th, 2026, and its regular council meeting held on August 24th, 2026, is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? That is carried. That takes us to third and final reading, and Councillor Flagg, you have that.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Christensen that bylaw 69, 2026 is given third and final reading, be signed by the mayor and clerk under the corporate seal.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. Scheduling of meetings. Councillor Christensen.
On September the 2nd at 10 a.m., the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee will meet in Committee Room 1, and at 5:30 p.m. on September 2nd, the Ridgeway BIA will meet at the Crystal Ridge Library.
Any other meetings? There being none, Councillor Dubanow.
Mercifully, it's been a long night, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Noyes, that council adjourns at 9:17 PM to reconvene into a regular meeting of council on September 28th, 2026.
All those in favor? None opposed. That's another unanimous vote. Thank you all.